Welcome to At Home with Music. I'm Lhévinne. If you've been trying to learn piano for a while, you've probably figured out that one of the greatest difficulties you face is coordinating your fourth and fifth fingers. Even your third finger, when you use it along with 4 and 5, can give you trouble. So, for example, if you're trying to play like something rapidly between 3 and 4, you may find that a little difficult. Even harder to play something like this with your fourth and fifth fingers. Now, of course, keep in mind, I've been playing the piano for a long time, but when I first started out, it was like, or even just playing a simple thing like this and trying to make it sound even. One of the best ways to help you gain more finger agility is to employ piano exercises which employ thirds. Now, thirds, as you may remember, occur when you play 2 notes of any diatonic scale, diatonic meaning major, minor, and those 2 notes are separated by 1 note in the middle. So, for example, C, there's a D in the middle there, but C and E, that's a third. Or D and F, another third, or E and G. If you're in the key of C minor, you've got C and E flat and G, and so on. So yes, thirds on the piano can be very difficult because you only got 5 fingers on each hand. Pretty obvious, right? And when you're trying to play thirds, you've got to figure out how to negotiate those fingers. You've got to make the weaker fingers, which are fingers 4 and 5, keep up with the stronger fingers, which are 1, 2, and 3. So practicing exercises that employ thirds, there's no shortcut here. But if you practice these type of exercises, it will definitely have a beneficial effect on your finger agility. Sad to say, there's no substitute for practice. One of the most famous pieces to employ thirds is the famous, and this is the nickname that was given this piece. It's called the Double Thirds Etude. Etude is a fancy word for exercise. The Double Thirds Etude by Chopin. It's more formally known as Etude Opus 25, number 6 in G sharp minor. And the thing about Chopin's piano exercises were that they are beautiful pieces of music and are often performed in concert as just beautiful music to listen to, even though they are a series of exercises meant to emphasize different technical challenges. And in this one, it's thirds. And it's one of the most difficult piano pieces of all time. In fact, there's a famous a famous pianist named Josef Lhévinne. He's somewhat obscure, but he spent 10 years practicing this particular etude of Chopin before he would perform it. By the way, I'll leave a link to Lhévinne's recording of Chopin's Etude in G sharp minor, Opus 10, number 6. He recorded this back in 1935, so the quality is not as pristine and sharp as a more recent recording, but nevertheless, it is an astonishing performance. And you'll hear his famous performance of this piece, but you'll also, and this is one of the neat things about YouTube, and I talked about this in a previous video, you'll be able to hear him play this piece, but you'll also be able to follow along with the score. So now we're not going to go to that extreme when it comes to playing thirds, but I know that you will benefit from practicing these exercises using thirds. Now we're going to start with some simple exercises in thirds, and these will be challenging at first. You may not be used to playing 2 notes at a time like this, but I encourage you to stick with it. I still use this type of piano exercise when I want to give my fingers a good workout. I'm going to switch to the overhead camera, and I'm going to take you through some simple thirds exercises. I'll demonstrate them, and then you can play along, and I will also be putting up the actual printed out music of these exercises so that you can see what it is you're playing, and then you'll be able to play these on your own in your own practice times. And if you really want to get ambitious, And why wouldn't you? You can even get to the point, and we won't get that far in this video, where you can practice scales in thirds. And this requires a bit of work and determination. Let me tell you, your playing and your confidence will surely benefit. However, playing scales in thirds, well, that's a subject for another video. But for now, let's get on with playing some simple exercises employing thirds. I'm going to switch now to the overhead camera. I'm going to show you several different exercises that employ thirds, so you can kind of pick and choose which ones you want to do at any particular time when you sit down to practice, or if you're feeling ambitious, you can do them all. So here's the first one. And you'll find this exercise in a lot of books of piano exercises. It's a very basic exercise in thirds, and I'm going to put a couple of little twists on it as well. We're going to start in the key of C major, and we're only going to use these 5 notes. So your hands really don't have to move up and down around the keyboard at this point. So this exercise will go like this. That's basically it. Now, I was going at a pretty brisk pace there, and you may find when you begin to work on exercises employing thirds that, well, your fingers are going to rebel a little bit, and that's okay. These exercises are invaluable for increasing your finger agility and strength. So you may have to go very slow, something like this. Also, you can practice one hand at a time. I'm a big believer in one hand at a time practice, especially when you're just getting started with exercises like this. You want to make sure you lift your fingers, not as outrageously high like that, but keep your hand in a normal position. Now, you'll notice that I am playing in what we call parallel motion. The hands are playing the same notes, an octave apart, of course. Now we're going to do the same exercise, but in contrary motion. Now you're going to be using the same 2 fingers on each hand, but your hands will be going in opposite directions. And it'll sound like this. Now, what you want to do after you've played these through in parallel and contrary motion is we move up to the next key. Now, you can do this in one of 2 ways, or you can do it any way you want, really, as long as you cover all the major keys. Now, I choose to just go up half a step each time, and so you end up playing in D flat, or C sharp if you like. Parallel motion, contrary motion. And then you move up to D major, and so on. So this will require a little bit of effort, a lot of concentration, but you will begin to feel the benefits in increased agility and flexibility in your fingers, because you're making the weaker fingers work at the same time as your stronger fingers, your thumb and fingers 1 and 2 and 3. But 4 and 5, they've got to pull their own weight when you're playing in thirds like this. And so this will help those troublesome fingers kind of get in line with the rest. Not only will you do this using the major scales, but we're also going to use minor scales. That's in parallel motion, and now contrary. Right, and then we do it in the subsequent keys. Now you're going to find these black key versions are a little tougher. I ended up doing the contrary motion first because I'm trying to talk and play at the same time. Anyway, you get the idea. And so on. You work your way through all the minor keys. So we've done major, minor. Now we're going to do something perhaps you wouldn't have thought of. We're going to use the whole tone scale. Now the whole tone scale is where we simply keep playing whole steps all the way up. This is one of those scales you use like the old dream sequence, you know. I was dreaming the other day, and so it's going to sound like this, starting with parallel motion. And then contrary. Of course, if you want to have some fun, you can play these with the pedal. Hold down the pedal all the time. Now it's very mysterious. And then, of course, you do the same thing starting on each note of the chromatic scale. And you might have to think about what notes are you going to be playing here, because you're using a scale that perhaps you don't play very often. And so on. You do it in parallel motion and contrary. Now here's another version where instead of doing something like this, we're going to go up and down. Parallel motion, contrary. And then, of course, in every other major key. I started with contrary again. Anyway, you get the idea. Then we're going to do it in the whole tone scale. Now, I'm just playing these a couple of times so that you get the idea. Otherwise, this is going to become a very long video. All right. And then minor. And that's, of course, parallel, contrary, and then in all the different keys. I don't feel the need to completely play all of these all the way through. These are so simple as far as what notes to play. I think you'll be able to figure this out pretty quickly. And you'll also get a really good workout. I think that's enough for you to get started using these exercises employing thirds. I think you'll find these very beneficial, also a bit challenging at first, but I encourage you to stick with it.